white cane, keep my eye on that far distance, and I'm going to end up where I want to end up and change direction.
You have to still do the navigating. The cane is just there to stop you from walking into objects you could never possibly remember are there, or just being so small. Like steps, curbs, little posts that are just constantly on the edge of roads in cities and towns and stuff, so it's just for that, really, obstacles.
I always say my eyes are in the soles of my feet, because again, when you're walking, you need to know all the pavement furniture, as we call it.
The design environment is designed by people, and yet we came to the very firm conclusion it was being designed by people who were designing us out of the system. Such things as crossings that had no provision at all for visually impaired people, that some places have got pavements that have a drop down, others now the modern tendency is to try and level them all out. Others, there are street furniture which is on the pavement side, others on the building side. There's advertising boards, which, all sorts of obstructions that, with a little bit of thought and design about our needs, could make life a lot easier for us.
If I'm going into town, say I'm going to Sainsbury's, I've got the whole route in my head and I'm part of the whole route. And I think one of the most difficult things to come to terms with is when you suddenly find you're not where you thought you were. Because you can be walking along, especially with a guide dog, and for some unknown reason, whether the dog's walked around an obstacle or not, you find you're on grass that you didn't know was there. So suddenly you're in a place you feel as though you've been beamed up by aliens, to be honest, and plonked down somewhere where you have no idea what to start from. So that's when you start listening to the traffic. But it's very difficult to bring yourself back to your own, the kind of feeling of self, and knowing that you are where you are or what you are. And it can be quite frightening to suddenly be in a totally different place. In a street situation, if you click your fingers, the sound changes when you get nearer to a wall, or an obstacle of some sort. Things that you don't expect to make a noise make a difference. A bus shelter, when you walk behind it, cuts off sound behind the traffic behind that. So the sound will change from being beside a bus shelter to not being beside one. People moving about don't always make a noise, but the sound around them is deadened by their presence.
I had that feeling whenever I walked somewhere that I could tell there was an entrance, like a gap in a wall, or like a fence or a big wall coming up, and I never really realised that was kind of linked. So a couple of years ago when I was at college, I just walked to my local shop, like a 10-minute walk without my cane. I brought it with me in case something happened, but I didn't get it out, and I just walked around, like, using echolocation, and just went along to the shop, just clicking and using the sound that bounced off of trees and posts and walls to get all the way to the shop. Then obviously I went to the shop and walked up a bit slowly up the entrance to get to the door, just to make sure that I didn't ruin it at the last minute and crash into the door. So I got in fine, and then just asked what I wanted and came back. But since then I've sort of believed in myself more. Like, there's so many shops, ever, and if I just want to buy some food, I can't remember the layouts of most of them, because I'm in so many places, that often when the till goes off, it helps me know the general direction of where I need to queue. And then obviously if I pass some people, obviously, like, I can't try and find the end of the queue, and then once that happens, I'm sort of in the right line. But there's a lot of skills, like hearing the doors open or the tills go, that like really, like help you just really quickly orientate yourself.
You listen, you investigate the bits you need to know. I suppose you could think of it as a cacophony of sound, but we don't, we filter it. It would be like asking you what you can see. What would you focus on? What do you say, if I was to say, what can you see in here? Where would you start? It depends on what I'm doing, where I'm going, as to what I'm listening for and what I'm feeling for.
Everything I have found, and this isn't for every person that I know that's lost their vision, but for me everything has been magnified. I hear much more defined now. My sense of smell is incredible, and my sense of touch, I can almost touch colours. I know that sounds weird, but it's almost true.
Because I was sighted, I know what these things are. I haven't discussed this with friends who've been blind since birth, because I wonder what they understand if you talk about a tree being 100 feet high and what it looks like, what they see. I mean, I said earlier about my friend and colour, totally meaningless to her. If you talked in terms of buildings and whatever, I still dream in colour, and I still see things. When I read a book or a talking book, listen to a talking book, I'm visualising it in the same way as anybody else would who's reading a book. I wonder how that works though with, again, people who haven't had sight.
Life is not hard, it's an adventure. It's not a war or a battle, it's an adventure. So it's out there to be enjoyed, and I want to join in with my surroundings. I want to be part of them. And sometimes the only way you can do that is by plonking yourself in the middle and saying, I'm here, what's happening around me? And then slowly other people will come into your way of thinking or help you to adjust to what the surroundings are. That sounded really philosophical. I don't really think about it, I just do. Waking up blind for me is like you waking up sighted. It doesn't make any difference. Apart from laying there wondering if I'm awake. And that's only because someone else asked. And I still dream in glorious Technicolor. Yay!